Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. This is Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Good morning, everyone. Happy game day. Can you feel it? It's football season. I'm Stu McCann, filling in for your regular CTKO host, Gary Harris. We will catch up with Gary a little bit later on. He's on assignment. Bet you can't guess where. He's in Atlanta for today's game. That is Miami in Alabama coming up at 2:30. But you're watching CTKO. We're going to get you ready. And we start out, as always, with our Bama headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama headlines.
Alabama versus Miami is one of 5 top 25 matchups in week 1. Here's the lineup. It's number 1, Alabama, and number 14, Miami. 2:30 today in Atlanta. A little bit later, that's on ABC. A little bit later on ABC tonight, it's going to be number 3, Clemson, and number 5, Georgia. Some more top 25 showdowns. Number 12, Wisconsin, and number 19, Penn State. Number 17, Indiana, and number 18, Iowa, and number 21, Texas, and number 23, Louisiana. Alabama has not lost a season-opening neutral site game during the Nick Saban era. The Tide is 10-0 in those types of kickoff games. And how about where have they won? 6 wins in Atlanta, 3 in Arlington at the Cowboy Stadium, 1 win in Orlando, and again, they'll try to wrap that again in Atlanta. In addition to previewing today's game, we're going to take a look at some of the impressive stats within Alabama's run during Coach Nick Saban's era. That is the subject of a new book by former ESPN analyst Brad Edwards, plus Dr. Richard Friend, the Dean of the university's College of Community Health, and Tim Reynolds, who covers the Miami Hurricanes for the Associated Press in our Behind Enemy Line segment. A full stacked show. But first, we start out with the scene yesterday. At the Malmore Complex on Friday, the Tide hit the road for Atlanta. You see the players. There's Henry To'oTo'o, DJ Dale getting onto the bus. We're going to talk a lot about the defense. I think we're going to hear a lot about the defense this season. Brian Robinson, the former Hillcrest Patriot, is going to get the shot to lead a stacked running back group. It's tough to have a position that isn't stacked when you're taking a look at this roster, at least from the look of things. John Mechie III, and then finally it's Coach Nick Saban, the last one there on the bus. All the doors closed. They're off to Atlanta. They arrived yesterday, and they are getting ready for today's game. Coach Saban says he is just as excited for this one and this game as he was for the games he was coaching 20 years ago. No doubt about it when you see him coaching. We do have some depth charts that came out on Monday. It's always something that catches the eye. Some of the takeaways from this week's depth chart. Henry To'oTo'o, the linebacker transfer from Tennessee, is going to be a starter over Jalen Moody and Shane Lee. You look at that position, Christian Harris and To'oTo'o, and backups like Shane Lee and Jalen Moody, you're in pretty good shape. Alabama's front 7 has the potential to be one of Alabama's best ever, maybe. Certainly maybe one of the best in college football this season. Justin Eboigbe, DJ Dale, Phil Mathis, Chris Allen, Henry To'oTo'o, Christian Harris, and Will Anderson. Plenty of depth. Coach Saban says he would like to go 8-9 deep at the defensive front. At tight end, Cam Latu is the starter. Jaleel Billingsley and Major Tennyson are listed as co-backup. At wide receiver, Ohio State transfer Jamison Williams is the starter at the Z spot. True freshman JoJo Earl is listed as a co-starter, along with Slade Bolden in the H slot receiver. John Mechie, a starter at the X position. Offensive line, in the middle, we have 2 players listed as the starting center, Chris Owens and Darren Dalcourt. Coach Nick Saban said he's comfortable where the offensive line is right now, but that's a challenge they're going to have to see today.
I'm confident in the group. There's a lot of competition up there, which I think is a good thing, and you know, we'll see. They're going to play against a good front, an active front, very aggressive front in this game, so it'll tell us where we're at.
A little bit to take a look at in this depth chart. 25 slashes, which means there is the and/or distinction on some of those positions, and 12 true freshmen featured in the 2 deep depth chart. The name that comes to mind when you're talking about the Miami Hurricanes is De'Aaron King. He's the guy who a lot of Alabama fans are worried about what he's going to be able to do and how the Tide is going to be able to stack up against him. He's a 6-year college football player, the last 2, this going into his 2nd season at Miami, and he's the dual threat that typically in the past, we have seen Alabama have a little bit of trouble containing.
His ability to extend plays, make all kind of throws, whether it's on the run and, in the pocket or get out of the pocket. And, keeps his eyes downfield at all times. And, it really helps their offense a lot being able to extend those plays with him keeping his eyes down the field.
It's rare that you see a quarterback that can run as great as he can and can pass and control the game. I think it's going to be a good challenge for us, and we're ready.
Something else to watch when Miami has the ball, there's a chance that Alabama's Malachi Moore could be matched up with his former Hewitt-Trussville High School teammate Daslin Worsham. The one-time Alabama commit, Worsham is a redshirt freshman wide receiver on Miami. You see 84 there. He's actually jersey number 19. So 19 on Miami. Daslin Worsham from Hewitt-Trussville High School. Alabama, how about some notes against Miami? The Tide is 10-1 in neutral site games. You heard the stat earlier, 10-0. That's season-opening neutral site games. Nick Saban lost a neutral site game in 2007 in Jacksonville against Florida State, but that was in the middle of the season. In Atlanta, Alabama has won 14 consecutive games since their loss to Florida in the 2008 SEC Championship game, and Nick Saban leads college football with 21 victories against ranked opponents by at least 25 points. Head coach Nick Saban announced on Monday that sophomore Quandarius Robinson has been suspended indefinitely from the team following a DUI arrest last weekend. Robinson did not play in 2020, but came from Jackson Olin High School in Birmingham. He was rated the number 65 overall recruit in the class of 2020 by the 247 Sports Composite. He will not be there for the team today in Atlanta. So today's game, it's an indoor stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, but Gary Stokan, who's the CEO of the Peach Bowl, said they are going to have the roof open today. So that is where Brianna Duncan comes in. Usually I would ask, what's the tailgate forecast? But the roof is going to be open, so we got to worry about a game day forecast as well for this Dome Stadium with the roof open. Brianna?
Absolutely, Stu. I think having the dome open is a great idea for today. We do have some great temperatures. You can see right now across central Alabama, temperatures in the lower to mid 80s. Some people still holding on to the upper 70s. Across central Alabama, we are really feeling football season. Cooler temperatures and starting off Alabama football today. Dry conditions across the state of Alabama, and luckily that moves on into Atlanta as well. So if you are in Atlanta for the game, you can expect potentially some cloudy conditions, but other than that, temperatures going to be great for you in Atlanta. At kickoff, temperature is going to be in the mid to upper 80s across the area as well as here in central Alabama. It's going to be a great day. Going on to your weekend, you'll have more on your forecast coming up in final weather, but I'll throw it back to you, Stu.
Thank you so much, Brianna. We'll catch up with you in a little bit. Coming up on Crimson Tide Kickoff, an inside look at Alabama's recruiting presence in South Florida as Nick Saban and the team head into Week 1 against the Hurricanes. And the quarterback debate. It comes down to that classic age versus experience discussion as the potential of Bryce Young looks to across the field at a more proven commodity, De'Aaron King. And Peach Bowl CEO and President Gary Stokan previews the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Stick around, you don't want to miss that. We are going to be right back on CTKO.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Welcome back to CTKO. I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris. The past few years, it's safe to say Alabama's QB roster has met the standard. And again, there's a new quarterback, but everyone seems to be very high on Bryce Young and expect him to rise up to meet that standard that's been set by Mac Jones and Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. But the first test for Bryce Young, can he outshine Miami's dual threat De'Aaron King? Here is CTKO's Tatum Vaught with a closer look.
Confident and dynamic, 2 words that have been used frequently to describe Alabama's starting quarterback, Bryce Young. The 5-star recruit from Pasadena, California, was ranked 2nd overall in the 2020 recruiting class and has already earned accolades even before his first start, such as A-Day MVP. Although he has had little time to show his strengths at the collegiate level, his talent alone has impressed his coach, teammates, and other programs.
And obviously, with Bryce Young, they've got a special young quarterback, #1 guy in the country, quick release, strong arm, really good mobility, a little bit different element than they had a year ago with the quarterback's legs. And so it is quite a challenge for us. So
while Young has already gained a high celebrity status with only 9 game appearances, his opponent in this evening's opener, D'Eriq King, is starting his 6th season as a college football quarterback.
Now you've got a quarterback who's got great ability to scramble, extend plays, make plays scrambling, throwing as well as running. That adds another element to it, and he certainly does that extremely well.
This will be the redshirt senior's 2nd season with the Hurricanes, since he transferred from Houston following the 2019 season. King, a dual threat on the field, has racked up over 10,000 yards in total offense and 32 total touchdowns in his career. Although King has significantly more snaps under his belt than Young, King is not the top dog when it comes to NIL deals. Young was one of Alabama's most sought-after prospects in the modern recruiting era. Combine that with over $1 million in endorsements, and Young's reputation speaks for itself as he goes into his first start with the Crimson Tide. For Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Tatum Vaught reporting.
Thank you so much, Tatum. Good job. The on-field battle is not the only fight between Alabama and Miami. It seems like the Hurricanes are fighting everybody because that recruiting war there at South Beach, so much talent and a number of players from the Alabama roster come from that area. Some of the names, defensive back Jordan Battle and wide receivers A.J. Hall and Tyo Jones-Bell. Now, Alabama has a history of recruiting players from South Florida, specifically receivers. Could Jones-Bell and Hall be the next Calvin Ridley or Amari Cooper, going on to be stars in the NFL? So you have to take a look at these guys and think there's something to that, and Alabama's success, they can certainly recruit that too.
Well, they've been doing a poor job of keeping enough of it home down there for sure for a pretty darn long time. But if you go back to the 80s when Howard Schnellenberger built that program from the ground up, he dominated Florida. He dominated South Florida in particular, and he called it the state of Miami. And he actually drew a line for his coaches and said, everything south of this line I'm drawing, and I think it was through Orlando, he said, we're going to own it all.
They recruited me very hard. My dad grew up a Miami fan. So I used to always, grow up watching Miami. Of course, they have a great tradition over there, great history, so all love for Miami.
Take a look at this list, the current Crimson Tide roster with the guys who are now in the NFL. Built by Bama, but raised in South Florida. Patrick Surtain II, Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Eddie Johnson. These 5 guys have earned more than $115 million in NFL contracts, all doing big things, all guys that Alabama was able to pull out of South Florida. We keep going because coming up next, it's Around the SEC. Get the latest on the rest of the matchups around the league that are being played today. And today's game between Alabama and Miami marks the end of an era. We'll explain and tell you why you should expect the Tide to close this particular chapter with an exclamation point rather than a question mark. CTKO returns after this. Seems fitting that a Chick-fil-A kickoff game should have tasty nuggets, just like this one. How about the game today? Miami is Alabama's final scheduled neutral site game. Alabama has a home-and-home series scheduled through 2035 against teams that include Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas, Wisconsin, Florida State, West Virginia. But no more of these neutral site games that we have gotten so used to seeing to kick off the season. Today is the end, or seems to be, the end of that era. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris. Gary had a chance to catch up earlier this week with Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl CEO and President Gary Stokan about today's matchup. It's number 1 Alabama, number 14 Miami, and what they are seeing from that area. Here is his interview with Gary Stokan.
And the CEO and president of the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Gary Stokan, joins us now to talk about the game. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, man, it's game day finally. It's exciting. We went through a COVID season, and we're certainly not out of the woods yet, but it feels a lot more normal this year than it did last year, and we got a great game on tap for this afternoon between number 1 ranked Alabama and number 15 Miami.
Yeah, we're excited. We obviously had the opportunity to host 3 games last year in a week, which would have set college football history, but due to COVID, we had to cancel those games. We lost a lot, but we hold things in perspective that people lost a lot more. They lost lives, they lost loved ones. So fast forward to this year and the comeback season of college football, and here we are with Alabama number 1 and Miami number 14 to kick off the college football season in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
When you look at this matchup later today, Alabama's ranked number 1. Miami, as you said, a top 15 team, but Alabama's a 19-point favorite in this game. Do you think people are sleeping on Miami just a little bit? The Hurricanes have 19 starters back, including dynamic quarterback De'Aaron King. This matchup, do you think it's going to be a closer game than what the odds makers said it to be?
Yeah, I have all the respect in the world for Nick Saban, good friend, great coach. I think the best college football coach we've ever had in the country. But when you look at Miami, to be 18-point favored, that's a little surprising to me in that De'Aaron King is a 6-year starter. Mm-hmm. He's coming back. He's one of the top-rated quarterbacks for the Heisman Trophy in the preseason, along, ironically enough, with Bryce Young of Alabama, who is yet to start a game. Kind of interesting dichotomy there. When you look at 19 starters coming back after a successful season last year, and then the amount of transfers that they have come in, especially on the defensive side, I think Alabama is in for a tough game here in this first game, and obviously Alabama knows it. Miami's in for a tough game with Alabama. I mean, that's why, you play the games. You got 2 top 15 teams, and that's why we love college football. And we love the Chick-fil-A kickoff games. We're able to put these 2 teams together and do it down on the field rather than what people are saying point spread should be.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun. All right, finally, I know as a member of the media, I had to send in proof of vaccination. If you don't have that, then you have to have a negative test 72 hours before the game, and I'm going to have to wear a mask in the press box. No issues with that. I know that earlier this week, the Chick-fil-A kickoff game sent out some rules for fans. What is going to be the rules for the fans in regards to COVID protocol in this game this afternoon?
Sure. Yesterday we made the decision after talking to all 4 universities they're playing in our 2 Chick-fil-A kickoff games, as well as with Mercedes-Benz Stadium and doctors. And we've decided to open the roof in Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the first time that will ever be open for a college game. So for both Saturday and Monday, the roof will be open. We're encouraging people to wear masks. But it's mandatory to wear masks for the media in the press box and in clubs where there's enclosed space. But when you're in the open, with the open air, we're going to encourage masks, but it's up to individuals.
Great stuff. Gary Stokan with us here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Gary. Both Gary Stokan and Gary Harris. We're going to catch up with Gary Harris again in just a few minutes. He's live in Atlanta. We're going to check in. But Tennessee kicked off the 2021 season with a 38-6 victory over Bowling Green on Thursday night. Ole Miss will start their season Monday with a Labor Day matchup against Louisville. The other 12 teams in the SEC, they're in action today, and there are some pretty interesting storylines. Here is CTKO's Cooper Husky with Around the SEC.
A new season brings a lot of new faces at quarterback in the SEC. 6 schools will start a QB who did not start a game in 2020. 3 more started less than half of their team's games last season. Of these 9 newcomers, 1 stands out. Zeb Noland started his college career in 2017 with the Iowa State Cyclones and then transferred to North Dakota State in 2019. When the Bison's season ended earlier this May, Noland thought he had played his final college football game and took a job as a graduate assistant at South Carolina. However, a preseason injury to the Gamecocks' expected starting quarterback, Luke Doty, left South Carolina without a quarterback for Week 1. Noland was asked to share reps with the other backup quarterbacks at camp and ended up winning the job himself. Today will also feature the first ever matchup between UCLA and LSU. However, one Bruin is very familiar with the Tigers. Linebacker Ali Cahoe played 3 seasons with Alabama before entering the transfer portal and traveling out to Los Angeles. Cahoe's superpower, though? Blocking punts. He blocked 3 punts in 2019 and has already blocked another one this year for the Bruins in their Week 0 win against the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. UCLA and LSU will kick off tonight at 7:30. Finally, Georgia quarterback JT Daniels signed an NIL deal with Everett Sports Management that can earn upwards of 7 figures. To make sure this newfound wealth doesn't alienate him from the other players in the locker room, Daniels has announced that he will give half of his earnings to be split among all his teammates this year. Daniels and the 5th-ranked Dogs will play the 3rd-ranked Clemson Tigers this weekend. Clemson and Georgia used to play annually from 1962 to 1987 and have only played 8 times in the 33 years since, with their last meeting being a 45-21 Bulldog victory in 2014. Well, that's around the SEC. For CTKO, I'm Cooper Husky.
Good stuff, Cooper. Thank you very much. Here's the rest of the SEC schedule for Saturday. One game is underway. Kentucky in action currently as we speak against Louisiana Monroe. The rest of the games are coming up later, and they're going to go all day. That matchup that Cooper was talking about, number 5 Georgia, number 3 Clemson, kicks off at 6:30 tonight on ABC. You heard Alabama-Miami point spread with 19 points. Double that, and you get Auburn, who is a 37-point favorite over Akron. Both Georgia and Clemson, they're going to start quarterbacks that have never played in a season-opening game. This trip, this weekend, today, will be LSU head coach Ed Orgeron's first time back on the West Coast since he took over for Lane Kiffin and was there at USC. He then got fired. But LSU at UCLA, the Ali Cahoe matchup, see if he can still be a thorn in LSU's side. Hurricane Ida pushed the Tulane football team out of its home in New Orleans, but it found a new home in Welcome Arms in Alabama. Find out more about where the Green Wave has been practicing. Plus, we have Matt Travis up next with a Behind Enemy Line segment. You do not want to miss this. The insider, Tim Reynolds of the Associated Press, gives us the insight to the Miami Hurricanes. Stick around. More CTKO up next. Alabama volleyball back in the win column. It rebounds from Thursday's loss with a convincing Friday win, a 3-set sweep over Buffalo. Abby Marajama leads the offense with 10 kills and a season-best 4 service aces. How about this? Alabama has double-digit aces in 2 of its 5 matches so far this season. That is a really good stat. Freshman setter Brooke Sussler led the team with a season-high 19 assists, and Alabama rolls to a win. 3 sets over Buffalo. The Tide wrap up their play in the Crimson Tide Invitational this afternoon at Foster Auditorium. 2 p.m. is the match time for Southern Miss. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Stu McCann filling in for Gary Harris. CTKO's Matthew Travis joins us live right here with the scoop. He got the scoop from going behind enemy lines, speaking with Tim Reynolds of the Associated Press to get the point of view on Alabama's opponent today. It's game day, Miami. What's the latest with the Hurricanes? Matt.
Hey, Stu. The story for Miami going into the 2021 season is the amount of returnees they have as the Hurricanes return 19 starters from the 2020 season. And I spoke to Tim Reynolds of the Associated Press earlier this week, and he says a large reason for that is because of quarterback D'Eriq King.
A lot of these guys who took advantage of the extra year, I think largely came back because in his 1 year here, I think D'Eriq King became the most popular guy in the locker room, the most important guy on the roster. And, I say he did that in a year. He did that in a matter of months. Like, he immediately sort of won the room over.
While Reynolds mentions that King is the leader on this Miami team, and he's a large reason why the Hurricanes have so many players returning, he says that for the Hurricanes to win this game against Alabama, the players in front of King are going to be the deciding factor.
I mean, for Miami to win this game, it's not going to be where does De'Aaron King need to improve. It's the guys in front of him. It obviously starts with the offensive line, and it's such a cliche answer, Matthew. It really is, but they need to keep De'Aaron King on his feet if they have any chance of winning.
Like any team, a game against Alabama is likely the biggest game of your season, but Reynolds says that beating Alabama wouldn't make the 2021 season a success for Miami. It would just be the first step.
This game against Alabama is a chance to take a huge step forward. But again, even if you lose this game, if you come out of it better, you're still set up for a very good season. And for this team, beating Alabama is not what you hang a banner about. This team, for this season to be one where they got, quote unquote, the job done, you have to win the Coastal, have to get to the ACC title game, probably have to win the ACC title as well.
Reynolds went on to add that for Miami to win this game, the key is going to be not turning the ball over several times and giving Alabama short fields, because when that happens, you're fighting an uphill battle that you're going to lose 10 times out of 10. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Matthew Travis. Back to you, Stu.
Thanks, Matt. You don't want to be on the wrong side of that 10 times out of 10 stat. You want to be on the right side of that one. For the last 25 years, former Alabama graduate Brad Edwards has worked for ESPN, focusing on the ever-changing landscape of college football, the road to the BCS, or the College Football Playoff national title. But this summer, Edwards turned his focus to a new project. CTKO's Dylan Morgan explains.
The top 3 teams in the country have shaken up the playoff landscape. Our insider Brad Edwards with us.
Brad Edwards was known as the BCS expert, but the BCS era is over and he has a new project.
Just the Facts is kind of 2 things. I mean, obviously it's a trivia question series, and it's meant to just kind of engage Alabama fans, give them something to be interested in the offseason, especially as we get closer to the opening kickoff. And it also is doubling as a way for me to promote my book that I have coming out. The book is about really how much Alabama has dominated college football and really the historical side, the historical perspective on that dominance.
Alabama football has gone from his primary focus when he played for the Tide to his passion when he worked here with the school, where one of his main jobs was to write up notes and highlight stats going into game day.
So when I was doing the book, I came across a lot of information about Alabama football that didn't really fit the theme of the book itself, but I still found it fascinating and somehow wanted to be able to get that information out there.
So we decided to test the knowledge of current UA students.
What's the only quarterback-wide receiver tandem in SEC history to combine for 2 touchdown passes of 90-plus yards?
I really don't know.
90-plus yards.
I don't know.
Mac Jones to Jalen Waddle.
Oh, why didn't I think about that?
Oh. Yeah, there was no chance I was going to do that.
You can purchase Edwards' new book online at BamaDynastyBook.com and test your Alabama football IQ with the full 50-part series of Just the Facts on YouTube now. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Dylan Morgan.
Great job, Dylan. Thank you so much. More CTKO after this. This is really cool to see. Tulane football right here in the Hank Crisp indoor practice facility. The green wave was displaced due to Hurricane Ida. First, it came to Alabama and practiced at Legion Field in Birmingham. Then, earlier this week, it was right inside of Alabama's indoor practice facility. Good to see that when teams are in need, schools are in need, that everybody is on the same team. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Stu McCann filling in for Gary Harris. Kickoff of today's game is 2:30 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and that is where we're going right now. CTKO's Gary Harris and videographer Keith Dobbins are live outside the stadium. Gary, what are you going to be looking for in today's game?
Well, thank you, Stu. As you can see, I'm just outside Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, as you mentioned, and we are ready to go. Before I get to the actual game itself, let me set the scene for you just a little bit. The Miami Marching Band has just been warming up to the left of me. The $1 Million Band from Alabama is just a little further down. Miami Pep Squad right here next to me, and the atmosphere is unbelievable. You have to take into account that last year was limited attendance for all of the college football games around the country. Today here in Atlanta, we are at full attendance. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is going to be packed for this Chick-fil-A kickoff game between number 1 ranked Alabama and number 14 Miami later on this afternoon. Now, Keith Dobbins and I got here, about an hour and a half ago and got set up, and I immediately started talking to fans from both sides. Let me tell you this, Alabama fans are supremely confident. I didn't talk to a single Alabama fan, and I probably talked to 12 or 15 of them. Not a single one even thought there was any possibility of a Miami upset. That's Alabama for you. Number 1 ranked in the country, 6 national championships in the last 12 years, including the defending national champions from 2020. And the fan base believes that the only question is how big will the margin of victory will be. Now, on the other side, I probably talked to 8 or 10 Miami fans. Let me say that they are cautiously optimistic. Cautious optimism. They're excited about this opportunity. A lot of the Miami fans that are old enough remember when they had their own dynasty throughout the 80s and 90s and into the early 2000s, and they know that this is an opportunity to return to the national stage and make a statement. Now, I don't think they're confident like Alabama fans are in terms of victory, but I do think they feel like they can hang in here, be competitive, and if they can get this game into the fourth quarter, I almost ate a bug there, have an opportunity for their team to win this football game. So the excitement is real. You can feel it. It's great to be here. Now, as far as the game itself, 2:30 kickoff on ABC. Alabama is a 19-point favorite. That tells you something about how this Alabama football team is regarded, even after losing 8 starters from the offense. If you include Jalen Waddle, 8 starters from last year are in NFL training camps this summer. So this offense is going to be a new-look offense, young offensive line. Kendall Randolph is listed as the starting right tackle, Stu, but we're not sure he'll be able to play on defense. That's where Alabama is going to make its hay, I think, today against Miami. They are loaded. They are experienced. The only question mark on defense is free safety DeMarco Hellams. We don't know if he's going to be able to play or not. Now, Nick Saban is undefeated in season openers at Alabama as the head football coach, including a number of them here in Atlanta. Alabama has been dominant. In fact, Saban's only lost 1 time here at either the Georgia Dome or Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and that was the 2008 SEC Championship game to the Florida Gators. So the football game should be exciting, but I'm just telling you again, to be here, to soak up this atmosphere, it is so much fun. Let me mention that after the game tonight on WVUA 23 News at 10, Dylan Morgan will be at the sports desk, but I will have a report, a post-game wrap from here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We'll have all the post-game coverage, let you know how this game turned out between Alabama and Miami. One quick note on Miami, 19 of 22 starters coming back. This is an experienced team, and expect their defense to try to bring pressure against that young Alabama offensive line and rattle quarterback the young Alabama quarterback. That'll be their strategy. De'Aaron King, the Miami quarterback, meanwhile, is a 6th-year starter. So he's got experience. All right, that is the pregame report from over here in Atlanta, along with photographer Keith Dobbins. I'm Gary Harris. Stu, back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much, Gary. You know, there's a saying that we want Bama. Well, the Bugs want Gary. I don't think that that's going to work out very well for them either. Great job, Gary. Thank you very much. We're going to recap the premiere of a new movie available. That's the Wishbone Boys documentary. That's highlighting the major part of Paul Bear Bryant's success at Alabama, a huge switch he made in 1971. We're going to give you an inside look also at the defensive depth that Alabama has prepared for this football season. Stick around. More CTKO is coming up. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris. Alabama head coach Nick Saban says he wants his defensive line rolling 8 or 9 deep this fall. The Tide returned 10 defensive linemen from last year's team, and all of them have some experience. Former Clay Chalkfield Cougar DJ Dale leads the pack, along with Justin Aboigbe, Fidarian Mathis, LaBryan Ray, and Byron Young, tallying the most career starts. Tim Smith and Stephen Wynn are expected to get some appearances in there as well, step up into a larger role. And younger players, Jamil Burrows and Jamarian Latham, have been showing promise. So last season was a one step. They could be also making another step. Watch out for that.
So you got like guys that can play like all three positions on the defensive line. So every rep you take, you got fresh legs. You can get the rest that you need. So at every point, like everyone's full speed.
It's cliche, but true. Good coaches win. Great coaches extend that window of success by adapting to create an advantage. That is what Alabama coaching legend Bear Bryant did in 1971. It's outlined in a new documentary, and CTKO's Alex Booth has more on the premiere of The Wishbone Boys.
Some stories need to be told, no matter how long it takes and the hurdles that you have to overcome. The Wishbone Boys documentary premiered at the Bama Theater last weekend, 7 years after the work began on this historical retrospective.
To put together the event was fun because you're asking all the players from 1971 to 82 to come back and see themselves on screen and bring their families. If you think about it, a lot of the younger people, as you maybe stated, they're thinking, who is this guy with the houndstooth hat? People are talking about him as being the greatest of all time.
30 former Alabama football players attended the premiere, including All-American quarterback Richard Todd and All-Conference running back Major Ogilvie, as well as Heather Cook, the daughter of Tide legend Mal Moore, who is Coach Bryant's offensive coordinator and essential in installing the Wishbone system. Legend has it the transformation took just 3 weeks. Alabama went to the first game of the 1971 season with 6 offensive plays, 4 runs and 2 passes, and a 17-10 win over Southern Cal.
Part of the big story is the fact that Coach Bryant made a strategic type decision to help us be more successful. Times had changed and he needed to change and made that decision, and we really enjoyed it.
Well, this was really a hot spot, a bright spot of Alabama football in the 70s, running the wishbone and changing things around, and he wanted to do something about it, so it's just taking a little while to do it.
The Wishbone Boys premiered 50 years after Alabama's shocking shift to the wishbone offense. Between 1971 and 1982, the run-heavy attack helped guide Alabama to 9 SEC championships and 3 national championships.
I mean, we've got to give the kudos to Coach Bryant. I mean, in 71, the 2 years prior, they'd gone 6-6, and this was he knew this would work.
The Wishbone Boys showed that a team with the right strategy, mindset, and motivation could accomplish the ultimate goal in college football. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Alex Booth.
Great job, Alex. Thank you so much. Still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff, we talked to Dr. Richard Friend, the Dean of the College of Community Health Sciences, to get some tips on staying healthy this football season. And we paid tribute to a pair of legendary Alabama football players gone far too soon. There is more to come on CTKO. Stick around. We will be right back.
Welcome back to CTKO, everybody. My name is Mike Royer. On this game day here at the University of Alabama, our special guest today is Dr. Richard Friend. Dr. Friend, as you know by now, is the Dean at the University Medical Center here at the University of Alabama. Dean Friend, it's always good to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
You're ready for football.
I'm ready for football.
Now, the question is, are we medically, mentally ready for football? Today, of course, Alabama's on the road in Atlanta, Georgia against Miami, but a week from today, this stadium that we're in will be flooded with about 100,000 people and 20,000 more outside. What are your thoughts? Last year was horrible. We had a terrible time dealing with football. We're a little more optimistic this season, aren't we?
We are. When I compare this year to last year, we have a lot more tools.
Yeah.
We've had great response from our faculty, staff, and students with vaccinations. Our faculty staff, almost 75% of them have been vaccinated, that we can confirm. And for our students, that number is right at 60%. So both of those numbers are great, especially compared to the state average and the state percentage. So I feel confident going into the game that we are going to be okay for the first home football game.
I've interviewed you enough, been around you enough, that I think I'm safe in predicting that you will say that
but be quick to add but. We don't want to be stupid or careless, take chances we shouldn't, and continue to think about what we're doing, where we're doing, and the precautions we should take. What is your advice to fans that are planning on being here in Tuscaloosa next Saturday?
Right. I think you cannot be too careful. I think everybody should be wearing a mask whenever possible, appropriate mask that's properly fitting. I know in the stadium, any indoor spaces, any air-conditioned spaces, they're all going to be mask requirements. I think outside in the seating bowl, there will not be a mask requirement, but we know that outside is a lot safer than inside.
There's no downside to wearing a mask outside in the stadium, sitting with the crowd. If you're used to wearing one, go ahead and wear one. Would that be wise?
Yeah, that's correct. There's never a downside to wearing a face covering in this environment. The Delta variant is out there. We know that. It is more dangerous than the original strain that we saw last fall. But again, with great vaccination rates on campus and appropriate precautions, we can begin to get back to some semblance of normal.
University of Alabama late last week announced that they were extending the guidelines for mask requirements on campus with some exceptions. They didn't add to it, make it more stringent, but they just extended it. I assume that's from guidance from you all on let's continue to be cautious.
That's right. We know the Delta variant is still alive and well in the community. We see some high positivity rates in the community. We see much better rates here on campus in both the student population and the faculty staff population.
I've covered one of the pop-up vaccination clinics that your people have done. They've done more than one, but there were students lined up the day I was there. I know you'd love to see that line and would like to see even a longer line and more pop-up clinics, I'm guessing, are in the future.
Yeah, I think we're looking for every opportunity to strategically use the resources we have. Student Health continues to vaccinate. University Medical Center continues to vaccinate. We really try to allocate our resources based on demand. That demand does appear to be wearing off a little bit. So I'll use this opportunity to encourage anybody who hasn't been vaccinated to get vaccinated.
The evidence just seems to be more compelling all the time. I understand some concerns by some people in groups, but the answer, I think you told me one time when I interviewed you, the answer to every question now is just get vaccinated.
Yeah, I think we can certainly move the needle in the right direction if we have more people getting vaccinated.
Booster shot, what's the latest on that? What are you thinking for those of us that got shots, 2 of them back earlier in the year? What are you thinking is going to happen?
Well, I have not seen any official announcement from the CDC or the FDA. I know they had postponed their meeting, which was scheduled to be last week. I do think that the current Pfizer and Moderna still provide good protection, except for those groups that may be immunocompromised or had an organ transplant or on folks that are on medications that suppress their immune system. That's pretty clear. Those folks need an additional dose, and we've given a few of those. But only 2.7% of the population in the country will qualify for that. So I would tell people to hold on. Don't panic. From the evidence I've seen, the vaccines are holding up well here in the community and in Jefferson County as well.
Thanks for all of your guidance now and during the last year and a half on COVID. I look forward to interviewing you about something else. Let's get your prediction. Alabama, Miami, 2:30 today. What does the dean of the University Medical Center predict?
48-14, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, and that's the best way to end the segment. Dr. Richard Friend, thank you very much, and we'll toss it back to Stu.
Friend, a double dose of sad news for Alabama football to pass along. Jimmy Fuller, former Tide player and assistant coach, passed away. He was 76. He won championship rings as both a player and a coach at Alabama, and then went on to a highly successful career as a head coach at Jacksonville State. In former Crimson Tide and NFL linebacker Keith McCants was found dead in St. Petersburg on Thursday. Pinellas County deputies say they responded to his home just after 5 a.m. and found him already dead. McCants was 53 years old. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Stu McCann filling in for Gary Harris. She's Brianna Duncan live in the Weather Center to give us one last look at the game day forecast.
Absolutely, Stu. So like we talked about before, temperatures great in Atlanta and here in Tuscaloosa. If you're in town watching the game, by 6 p.m. we'll reach the lower 80s at kickoff. We're in the mid to upper 80s, and that continues on throughout your weekend. Now tonight, temperatures will lower into the upper 60s. A great Sunday ahead, as well as Monday and your Labor Day. I have more in your forecast coming up on the news at 10.
Thank you so much, Brianna. Great game day forecast, and the game today. Alabama and Miami, number 1 and number 14, 2:30. It's on ABC. The game is in Atlanta. Have a happy game day. Dylan Morgan and Gary Harris will have the full recap tonight at 10 o'clock.